the Mindful CEO special live events. That's what we're calling these, I think. I don't know. I don't know what we're calling them. I'm calling them that today, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm here with Joe Rose, who runs one of the most popular Zen meditation podcasts on Spotify. So I just think that's so badass because I just got off a meditation call where I'm training real estate agents to slow down and meditate. But I don't have, like a pure meditation podcast. So just meditation for meditation's sake, which is really the heart of the whole thing for me. So, Joe, welcome. It's great to meet you. I'm really, really happy about this opportunity. Introduce yourself, how you'd like to be known in the world. Let's start there.
Yeah, fair enough. Good place to start. I'm Joe Rose. I'm the founder and host of Zen Mind Guided Meditations. Also the founder and CEO of Ascension Global Enterprise. We operate in the wellness media space. So everything from guided meditation to nervous system regulation to education around neuroscience, around the nervous system, around the human body, around how things work, how humans work. We're expanding into so many different areas. And I think that there's never been a more important time to have these conversations. Anxiety is at an all-time high, right? We see burnout. We see folks who are just living so disconnected from themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I've really made it my mission to bring people back to themselves and help people understand themselves a little bit better and really just reconnect with their purpose and living a truly meaningful, awesome life, because I think that we all really, really deserve that. So that's me in a nutshell and what I do.
Yeah, that's very cool. How'd you get into that? What made you start Ascension, and what made you, how long have you been meditating? How'd you fall into this particular path?
Yeah. So, I was very fortunate to grow up very connected to mindfulness. I grew up on a farm, and so I was spending a lot of time out in nature and just very connected to the elements, and I was aware of like what mindful living was, but for me it was just kind of natural, and there was a time where I studied Buddhism, and I was just really interested in different religions and different paths of spirituality, really just to kind of open my mind to see, what other people were doing, right? So I really got into meditation. The story is kind of interesting. I was in college and I was studying business, and I was diagnosed with something called PNES, which is psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. Okay. And so what was happening is I was having such severe night terrors that I would have a seizure and I would wake up seizing. And it was really scary. And I didn't have epilepsy. And so I went into therapy, and we're, working through it and what's going on. And that's where I was diagnosed with PNES. And essentially it's, when there's such an overload of stress in the subconscious, and what happens, it discharges, and it discharges usually at night when you're sleeping. Paired with the night terrors, it was not fun. It was not pretty. And it was a really, really kind of dark place for me because I was just struggling so much, and I sleep is so important. Like if you're not getting good sleep, you can't function, right? Like, and I started to see it in all these other areas of my life. Like I just felt like I was struggling so much. And so I turned to meditation because it was the only thing that would help me kind of calm down before I went to sleep. And it was a way for me to really kind of connect back with myself, relieve a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, because then I started having the feedback loops of, oh my gosh, am I going to have night terrors tonight? And then I would get stressed about that and then anxious about that. And it just becomes this never-ending cycle. So that's when I found meditation and got really, really into it and started using guided meditations in my own practice. Mm-hmm. It pulled me out of a really, really dark and scary time, in my life. And eventually everything kind of went away, more or less. I mean, I was in therapy and I was working through things, and of course other lifestyle choices that played a part in that. But overall, like from that point onward, it was like my saving grace. And I just fell in love with meditation, and it just became a part of my life. And so that was about, let's say 2018, 2019. And 2020 rolled around, and we all know what happened in 2020, and the world was kind of a crazy place, and things were happening and changing. And I remember going home from college and just being very alone, like I was back at my parents' house and my friends had all left. And so it was just a very strange time. And again, I found myself meditating a lot, just spending a lot of time with myself, by myself. And I remember just saying, there's people out there that definitely need to feel better in whatever sense of the word. And so I said, I'm going to put a couple meditations out into the world and just put them out there. I love to create. I've always been a creator. And I just said, I'm just going to do this. And if one person feels better because of what I created, then my job is done. And so I did that. I made 5 meditations. I scripted them, printed them out, like looked up words in the thesaurus. Like I was, it was kind of old school back then, recorded them on a handheld, like mini $40 recorder. And I let them sit. And I never really thought about them again until about 3 years later. And so at that point, I had graduated. I graduated with my master's, my MBA, and I was working down in New York City at a big legal institution. And again, I kind of slipped into this pattern of being really disconnected from myself again. My nervous system was completely dysregulated, and I didn't really have the words or the vocab for it. I didn't really know what was going on. But again, I was struggling. I was struggling with sleep. I was struggling with anxiety. I was struggling with just feeling very disconnected with myself. And so in about May 2023, I turned back to a Zen mind, and I'm like, I'm going to pour back into this. I'm going to pour back into myself, into my practice, and also just have something that makes me feel really good, and can help others. And so that's really when a Zen mind, I would say, took off. And within the next 9 months after that, we had gone from about 40,000 listeners to 1 million. And then the following year, we went up to 5 million, and now we're at almost 25 million. And the audience has just expanded globally. We average over 1.2 million downloads per month. Just really, really beautiful, lovely community. And I've seen how important it is, the work that we're doing, and how needed it is, and it's just been a path since then of growing and expanding and learning more about the practice and learning more about others and what they need, and continuing to just evolve and give into that life cycle.
That is just such a killer story. I love that. And I mean, it wasn't, some big strategy. It was really just you authentically putting something out, and it hit the right chord at the right time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I will say, never in a million years did I ever anticipate turning it into a business. That was so far from my mindset. And I remember having people say, like, oh my gosh, like, aren't you doing something with this? And I was like, no, because I still had my corporate position. I'm like, I liked working in corporate, I'm like, I like this. Like, I enjoy it. And it's just like a side passion project for me. And so to see how it's evolved and how it has turned into a business, also just having an entrepreneurial background and a business background, I love business so much. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's the intersection of doing something of service to others, but also being able to structure it in a way where it reaches the right audience, and can be structured in a way that is essentially a media company, a business, a brand. It's very, very fulfilling beyond anything I ever imagined.
That's fantastic. And where do you live now?
Right now I'm in Lisbon. I just moved. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. I left the States, and I moved to Lisbon about a month ago. So
cool.
I feel like, again, as a New York girl, like the lifestyle and the pace there, it worked for me for about a year. And then I traveled quite a bit after that. I traveled abroad for several years. And then I decided that it was time to really focus on growing the business again in a very strategic way, and being around people and a community that really supports that. And so it led me here.
That is very, very cool. That's great.
Yeah.
And so when you talk to me a little bit about how you see meditation, and here's the space of the question, because someone shared with me, I can't tell if it's a book or it's an article, but it triggered something for me about McMindfulness is what it's called. And it's this world. See, it. I I didn't read the whole thing,
Mhm.
so I didn't read. I don't know if it's a book or an article. I read the post and I read what was written. I can't tell if that's the whole thing or if there's more. But the assertion at the assertion the thing is making is, that bringing meditation into corporate America,
Mhm.
it is somewhat cheapens meditation. That you are calming people's nervous systems down so that they can work a 60-hour week without burning out. That
Mm.
you're now layering on um, you're layering on mindfulness on top of hustle culture
Mm.
and using it as a tool. And it goes as far as, the instigator of that is John Kabat-Zinn. So as soon as they were like that, I was like, okay, this is sort of, it struck me, the whole thing struck me like when I was, so I was a punk rock, I was into punk rock for, oh, I still am, but when punk rock was a bigger thing in the 90s. um, you'd stand in the back of the room and you would judge the commerciality of people, and like that, like not punk enough, right?
Mhm.
So there's I would say there's more than a little not punk enough, some judgment
Mhm.
from that McMindfulness about mindfulness. Like, it has no place in corporate America. Don't justify forcing people to work 80 hours a week by layering on mindfulness. Um, which on one hand I can hear,
Mhm.
like I can hear that, but at the same time, it's like, okay, dude, you're missing the boat. So just talk to me about your relationship to corporate America,
Mhm.
where mindfulness falls into that, and just how you relate to the work that you do.
Yeah. I think mindfulness is not something that you do, it's something that you are.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of people, we live, especially in America and with the corporate culture and just with the culture in America in general, it's based off a lot of consumerism. And so it's any way that we can kind of sell something new, right? And it's you need meditation or you need mindfulness so that you can X, Y, and Z. Um, Again, for me, I was very fortunate where I just grew up very mindful, just going for a walk and observing the patterns on the leaves, things like that. And so I think that it kind of mirrored back in a lot of my decisions. Why am I doing this? What is this for? How does this make me feel? And I think that with the hustle and the corporate culture, a lot of people are very deeply disconnected from their purpose.
Mm.
And so they're living these lives that have been maybe set out in front of them, or they've kind of fallen into this space, and then one day they wake up and they're like, wait, do I even want this? And
Right.
so I don't even think that the problem at that point is, oh, meditate and you'll feel better. I think it's like we've got to kind of strip it back down to basics and like get back in touch with who we really are and
Mm.
what we really want, because there's a lot of people that live their lives just going through the motions, and they're just kind of following this path that was set out for them, and they're working the 80-hour weeks, and they're doing whatever it is that they think is right, but they feel so deeply disconnected from themselves, or they feel like something is wrong and they can't you know put their finger on it. And so layering on, hey, you need meditation to be able to work more, or you need no, like, it's I don't think it's that at all. I don't think that anybody needs it in order to achieve something else. I think that we all need it to really deepen our connection with ourselves and to start being a bit more curious and inquisitive with our own inner world. And what is it that really makes me happy? What is it that I want for my life? What is it that's going to allow me to deepen my relationship with my spouse, with my children, with my colleagues, with my relationship with work, my relationship with my thoughts, my relationship with my past? And it's all about this kind of dynamic approach to who you are as a person, rather than what it is that you are doing, or the roles and responsibilities that you hold in your job or in your family or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. It's funny. You have I mean, I agree, completely agree. And I think that I think that if you authentically practice, not practice in order to, because there is no practice in order to.
Yeah.
Right. That's not practice.
Right.
Right. If you practice, then what shows up is at least what shows up is the places you're disconnected.
Yes.
I mean, that's the practice is just connecting. I mean, really, the practice is connecting. Is the practice. What you're doing is, and so it by default will lead to kinder outcomes.
Yeah. And, when you think about it, like, let's use the example of going to the gym. You go to the gym and let's say you want to drop 50 pounds, right? Or you're getting married and you want to fit in your wedding dress or whatever it is. You go to the gym and you have a specific outcome in mind. Okay, a couple months, whatever, you're going to the gym, you're doing your thing as you have to, whatever. You're kind of feeling like, oh, I don't want to go, but I will, and it is what it is. And then you go there, you achieve your goal, you do what you set out to do. And then what happens, right? 9 out of 10 people end up gaining that weight back, right? They go right back to their old ways.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that is doing something for a specific outcome. But for example, myself, I've been going to the gym for 10 years now. It's a part of my lifestyle. It's a part of my identity. I'm somebody who is a person who values fitness and health and wellness. I don't go for a purpose. I go because it's a part of me. It's something that's important to me. It's something that I value. I like the way that I feel afterwards. And there is no outcome to achieve. I'm not going in order to get something out of it. I'm just going to have the experience and what that does for my life holistically, and it's the same thing with meditation. There are certain things that you can derive from meditation. You might feel better. You might be able to work through something. You might be able to sleep better, what have you. But as a practice, it's ongoing. It's constantly evolving. It's constantly changing. And it's just deepening that connection with you over time, with your inner world. And it's helping you navigate things in real life in a more intentional way.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's such an interesting thought too. I mean, it's a paradox. It's the ultimate paradox that the Buddha sat with the desire to lose desire, right? So the whole thing is born out of the fundamental paradox of that there's, it's not, you don't go to fulfill, here's how I would say it and see if this resonates. I would say it's not that you don't go to fulfill a goal. I mean, you can, and then you get what you get. You get that, I got the goal, now what? Which is the hustle culture, short term. I got this, right? And I'm always needing more. I got to lose some more weight or do this other thing. But you go to fulfill, it's not a purpose, it's you go to fulfill your purpose.
Yeah.
You're meditating to fulfill your purpose. And in fact, your purpose arose in meditation. Yeah. What your purpose was even arose in the quiet. You could hear, right? Like, I talk about prayer is talking to God and meditation is listening. Like the information drops in about what's true for you now. And it is evolving because what's true for you now may not be true for you tomorrow. It's not, there is no tomorrow. There's only now. So you're just going to check in every day with, just take some quiet time. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a useful way to look at that is not going to fulfill a purpose, going to fulfill your purpose.
Yeah. And I think, also at its core, as the times have changed, we're living in a very modern, tech-heavy world, and there is just a ton of input and a ton of distractions. And so I grew up in high school. I didn't have my first cell phone. I had a flip phone when I was in like 9th grade. And then by 11th grade, I got a smartphone, but still it was kind of like the start of Instagram, and there was still MySpace and whatnot. It wasn't like it is now with, YouTube Shorts or TikTok or whatever, just that desire to grab as much attention as possible. And I think that now majority of people, they have something to constantly fill that silence. So a lot of people don't have that silence in their life. it is just constant input, from advertisements to other people's lives, to social media, to reality TV, to news, to everything. We are constantly taking in the world around us. And
Mhm.
if you're sitting at a stoplight, what do most people do? They reach for their phone. They don't want to sit there with their thoughts. They reach for their phone, they give it a scroll. And again, you're constantly putting information in, and you're never creating space to actually think, to actually pause, to create that space to listen to your inner voice. And then we wonder why we're so disconnected from ourselves. And it's because, well, we don't even have a connection with ourselves. We're so connected to everybody else and to everything outside of us. But we often forget that our own inner world is the most important thing to us. And we abandon it,
Yeah.
and we give our attention to so many other things. And so I think that creating that space and creating that silence within, and just again shifting that relationship with your inner world, it serves so many purposes that are beyond what we even set out to achieve. But it's just deepening that relationship with the self, because there is so much in the world that is constantly trying to pull us away from ourselves. And so in order to know ourselves, to know our purpose, to know what makes us tick, we have to be able to create that spaciousness and that silence within, and again that relationship with our own selves, so that we can learn about ourselves.
Yeah. So you and I are, clearly speaking the same, heading the same direction. The same thought. I was so I do a lot of work with from my perspective on that is that meditation is actually brain training.
For sure.
It's training your brain to have agency over your attention.
Yes.
That in a world that there's $1 trillion being spent every year on advertising to capture your attention, that's just advertising. That's not Instagram, hooks of influencers, or the constant pinging of your cell phone with text messages, and a massive amount of data that's being produced every year. But to be able to have agency over your attention is what you're training when you meditate. That's what you're training when you return to the breath. You're training yourself to not get hijacked. And in that space, you have the opportunity to actually be here now. And now is the only place that your actions are going to happen. And the only place that you can ever impact life is now. Exactly. So if you don't have agency over your attention, you don't have that. You said this thing a couple of times, and I think I wonder if you've ever really examined it, because, you said, I grew up on a farm, so I was sort of in a mindful context. That's not inherently a mindful context. There's plenty of people who live on farms who are default mode networks spinning out on whatever they're spinning out on. So I think it's great that you relate to it. Like, well, it was just sort of natural for me, but it's really not natural for everyone.
Yes.
In those worlds, But have you played with? Have you any thoughts about that? I just think it's great that you have that as a default, but as a context.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think, again, I was very fortunate, because it wasn't just that, but it was also just how I grew up, and it was how my parents raised me. And it was always looking at the details. And, for example, like we didn't watch TV. It wasn't like come home, sit in front of the TV, watch, the show and whatever. It was like, let's go outside and we're going to go photograph mushrooms in the forest. Like that was how I grew up. So I was always like when it comes to mindfulness, it's like you're, observing the way that the light hits, the wall and the shadows create, or the ripples on the water, or, a dewdrop on a leaf. And so it was that level of mindfulness where you're just very deeply connected to your environment. And so it was a little bit easier for me to be present, because that was just kind of what I knew, and again, growing up with animals as well, being very connected to animals, being just very connected to kind of a slower pace of life, again, on my side of things. And also I was a child. So I think that really helped. And again, just being aware of it, and being comfortable sitting in silence, fortunately growing up before the iPad ages, and the social media and the cell phone age. So, it was just a little bit slower, a little bit, of a deeper connection to your environment. Also, I think the older I've gotten, the more I've realized I was really into photography at a very young age. I think I was like 12 or 11, and my mom bought me like a point and shoot camera. And so I would run around the property. We had 30 acres, and I would, just be like literally like lying on the ground, like photographing blades of grass, And so again, I think that it just inherently connected me to my environment very deeply. And so that kind of transpired in other areas of my life. I'm having a conversation with somebody, and I'm really, really listening, and I'm kind of reading in between the lines, and I'm paying attention to their body language. Like things just move a little bit slower. And so you're just a little bit more clued into that. And I think that I was very, very fortunate to have grown up that way. But I know that a lot of people don't. A lot of people, it's a very strange concept, to be so connected to your environment, and to be so connected to your surroundings, and then so connected to yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of us don't have that. So for me, I believe I was very fortunate in that. And it kind of played out in other areas of my life as I got older. But I know there's a lot of people that don't have that experience. And then it's kind of a learning curve, as we get older, once we're introduced to mindfulness, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I've had people in my audience and part of my community, that, I'm 60 years old and I just learned about meditation. Like, this is so cool. And that is phenomenal to me and incredible to me. But it goes to show, the true life cycle. I mean, there's people that, start this when they're young. There's people that start this when they're, much older. They have families, they have lives, they've built their lives, and so I don't believe that there's ever a right or wrong time to start. I think if you start when you're introduced to it, and then it just kind of becomes a way of life.
Yeah, I think it's a great distinction to make, Joe, is that you make is that this world of, you talk about watching the shadows, because people think about meditation as, sitting cross-legged, incense, an hour at a time, emptying the mind. And that's a big turnoff, because they can't quiet the mind, and they can't do this, and they can't do that, and and I'm not going to spend an hour doing it, and, good for you. So there's this world of, okay, well then don't do that. Then, sit with your morning cup of coffee.
Yes.
In silence, no phone, and just watch the shadows and the way the steam comes up off the cup, and the warmth of the cup in your hand, and the way the oil forms on the top, and the aroma. And you're drinking coffee anyway, you might as well have that be a mindful cup of coffee. And if you just did that, every day, you would be training your brain for agency of attention. That's a meditation. And I was reading this interesting thing from Richie Davidson, who the fMRIs were done on that, and the same neurological difference gets made from those kind of mindful moments as silent meditation. Yeah. So any way you want to slow down and get yourself present will work.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So I 100% resonate with that. And I talk about this a lot. One of my most meditative experiences that I've ever had, I was in a nightclub in London, and I was dancing for hours and hours and hours. And I just felt like I was the most connected I've ever been. And it was connected to my body, connected to my soul, connected to the people in the room, connected to the energy, just so deeply connected. And I tell that story as kind of like a punchline too, because I'm like, no, I can meditate in this conversation right now. I can meditate when I'm on the train. I can meditate while I'm traveling. I can meditate anywhere, because it's not about doing something. It's about how you do anything.
Yeah. So that's really good.
You can be meditating while washing the dishes. You can be meditating while taking the dog for a walk. And the whole story around emptying the mind, I'm very, very open about this with my practice and with my community. I don't believe in quieting the mind. I don't believe in emptying the mind, because the mind was literally designed to think. And so meditation has been packaged, commercially, as empty the mind and be zen, and you'll have no problems. And that's just not the reality. Like, my mind is active when I'm meditating. There's a million things going on, and that's okay. Like, it's just about shifting your relationship with what's present. And to your point, through acts of mindfulness in your real life, that's when you start to train your brain to have that agency over your attention. So when you do sit down to meditate, you can shift the relationship with the thoughts that are present. And over time, you will end up kind of quieting the thoughts, and you will end up having more space, because you've simply shifted the relationship with what's present.
Yeah, it's great. I use that as the metaphor too. I use meditation is going to the gym.
Yes.
Mindfulness is how you live.
Yes.
No one goes to the gym. Well, not nobody. If you're an Olympic weightlifter, this is not for you. But nobody else goes to the gym to get good at lifting round iron circles. Mm-hmm. You don't go sit in meditation to get good at meditation.
Right.
You go to the gym so that you can lift your grandkid. You sit in meditation so you can be present when the market crashes, or you find out whatever life has in store for you. You can be present. But mindfulness is how you live. So you can combine, and there's a Venn diagram, a big overlap between the two, but they're distinct. You don't have to sit in meditation. And if you do, it adds a bonus to the times when you're not in meditation. Mm-hmm. It slows the default mode network down enough so that you can separate what's happening from the threat of what's happening.
Yeah, and I think just the education around how our brain and how our body works. I mean, we're not really taught that in school, and so we wonder why we're so disconnected from ourselves. And we have this nervous system that is basically controlling our entire life, and then we have our subconscious brain, right? And we're not taught about this. We're not taught how to tap into this, how to work with it. We're just kind of sold this, okay, it's outside of you. This is going to make you feel better. This is going to help you. This is going to do this, do that. But really learning how to use this vessel that was given to you, your brain, your nervous system, your body, just your makeup, learning how to use that, how to understand it, first of all, because again, there's kind of this, I think nowadays it's become a lot more talked about, but before it was kind of like, it wasn't really a thing that people were aware of, and now we're learning, like nervous system regulation, like living in a regulated state, or knowing when I'm dysregulated and how that affects my health and how that affects my metabolism, let's say, how that affects my sleep, how that affects my relationships with others versus when I live life in a regulated state. And meditation is only a tiny piece of that puzzle. Meditation is really, it's the thing that you do, but it's the lifestyle around meditation and mindfulness and being present. And then again, learning how to use your body, learning how to use your nervous system, learning about the brain, learning what's going on up there, leaning into it, and then being able to actually navigate life's challenges, knowing what's going on. It's like the man behind the curtain, right? It's like all kind of like, it's something's there, but like, I don't really know, and then you kind of pull it back and you're like, oh, so this is what's going on. So this is why I keep repeating these same cycles. Oh, it's just a limiting belief that's been lodged in my subconscious since childhood. Oh, okay, I understand that. Now I can pay more mind to that, or, oh, I've been living in a dysregulated state because I only get 4 hours of sleep every night and I doom scroll before I go to bed. That makes sense why I feel like shit in the morning. So maybe now I can curb that and try something different, and so it's just this kind of never ending cycle of learning about ourselves and learning about our bodies, learning about our minds, and then being able to tap into that and actually make positive changes with it.
Yeah, good. And the thing that you're speaking around it, but I think it's worth underlining, and I know this is why you do what you do, because there's a difference between, look, I don't think there's 3 people listening that don't know doom scrolling before bed's a bad idea.
Right.
I don't think there's anyone who's like, what? Whoa, wait, I didn't know that. Okay. So it's not the information. The thing that meditation and practice, any kind of practice, let's just put practice in there, any kind of practice of returning to the present provides for you is the experience, is to actually stop from taking the actions that are counterproductive. Right now, you don't doom scroll because you're like, this is a good idea.
Right.
You're not picking up the phone every single 40 times a minute or 40 times an hour. You're not picking it up because each time you think this is a good idea, you're doing it on automatic. You doom scroll on automatic. You are doing all that, right? If you're going to contextualize this in the neurological nervous system space, your amygdala is determining that tuning out and being fed information is a safer event for you than just simply sitting. It occurs, the uncertainty of the moment is too threatening for the amygdala, so it's prone to distracting the mind because the present moment is completely uncertain. The thing that meditation will provide, or the mindfulness lifestyle that you're talking about will provide for you, is that momentary, that the space of choice in the moment. Is this an action that I want to take? Is this something that's going to further my purpose? So it is all wired together. The whole conversation is wired together. But the practice develops the neurological brain patterns, changes your brain enough so that there's now a space between the impulse and the action. So people listening, I just don't want people to get wrapped around the axle of, well, I already know that. Knowing it's your subconscious doesn't make any difference. Knowing that you do things, everyone knows how to lose weight. Woohoo.
Right.
Which is a funny example for me now, because and this is so new to me. I'm in the middle of it. I dropped 20 pounds in the last month.
Wow.
Through noticing what I have been calling hunger. Like, I'm 6'2" and I weigh 210. There's so little chance that I'm hungry. I mean, there's just so little chance that I'm experiencing hunger at any given moment.
Yeah.
My blood sugar might be low. That's conceivable, but there's very little chance that I'm experiencing hunger.
Yeah.
No, that's a craving.
Yeah.
That's a craving. Oh, that's okay. I don't dance to every craving I have. I don't have to dance to that one. And the beauty of practice is, if you let it be, it'll let you be. If you don't feed it, it just goes away. And now the next thing shows up, and now mind will chase that. So I've literally just stopped eating. I just the only way to lose weight is to put less calories in than you burn. I mean, there's no, that's not like, nothing changes about that equation. But the ability to see the thought as the thought versus jump every time it shows up.
Yeah.
For me, the magic of practice.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with that. And I think it's just being more intentional and being more aware of why we do what we do. And to your point, being changing your relationship with hunger. Am I actually hungry, or am I just bored? Or is it just that time of the day where I'm supposed to eat? And
I'm
same
used to it. Right.
Right.
Or is it a reaction to some emotional problem that, whatever, some habit versus, no, wait, what's going to fulfill my purpose here? And the purpose arises through practice as well. Like, what's my purpose? What is it that I really am committed to? What's going to matter here?
It helps us just be way more intentional and purposeful with our time as well, and with our decision making. Something as simple as learning how to listen to your body and what you need in any given moment. I mean, there's things that we have to do that we don't want to do. Of course, life isn't like rainbows and tulips, but I wish. I'm still waiting for it. But being able to just move through things a little bit more intentionally, and being able to choose what it is that we need for ourselves, and so I just talked about this the other day on Instagram, intuitive eating. To your point, not so much about hunger, but just the relationship to food. We are, again, in America and in the culture in America, it's very fast, it's very quick, it's whatever can satiate you right now and then get you on with your day. And so a lot of us are so disconnected from what we're putting in our bodies. And then we wonder why we feel sluggish, we feel groggy, we have no energy. It's because Starbucks came out with this new drink that has, 3 times the amount of caffeine that you're supposed to have in a day. And it's pumped full of artificial sugars and preservatives and God knows what else, but we just do it. We just go for it because we're tired. So we're going to go and grab it. And it's like, there's this concept, I'm sure you're familiar with it. The founder of Toyota came up with it, the 5 whys. Are you familiar?
No, talk.
So the 5
whys. Why? Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So I learned this in business school and I applied it to so many different areas of my life. And it's just working your way backwards from the root of the problem, to get to the root of the problem. So you have the problem and you just continue to ask.
Why is that happening? Yeah. Same thing with sales. If you're working with someone, why do you want that? Why do you want that? Why do you want, so that when you're speaking to them, you're speaking to their real core desire.
Yes. Yep. And that's so important in just everything that we do in life. Like when you think about that construct, right? It's like, we're just getting to the root cause. And so if we apply that to literally anything in life, if we just paused and asked why even once, it's like, I'm feeling like I want to grab my phone and doom scroll. Just pause and say, okay, why? Why do I feel like doing that right now?
Is it good thing? It's great practice.
Right? Just why? Why? Just ask yourself why, as if you're a friend, just saying, oh, like you want to go do this tonight, or you want to go talk to what?
It's so good. Sorry, Joe, because it also asking why bypasses the moral judgment about it. There's so much guilt and shame and I should, like, it's a moral failure, or even it's not, forget about a moral failure. It's a failure of will, or it's a failure of some kind. And it's not, it's just, you haven't trained your brain.
Right.
A feral dog isn't failing. It just hasn't been trained.
Yes.
It's not like a problem. It's certainly not moral, and it's not even a failure of anything. It's just simply no one took the time to train it. And that space of why is a training mechanism.
Yes.
In this case, I love it because it really does short circuit the otherwise, oh fuck, I did it again, like that.
And then there's also a level of accountability that you have with yourself when you start asking yourself why, because it's like, you start to see things for what they really are, and you can't really hide behind, oh, I don't know, I just did it, I don't know. Like, that's how, you lose so much agency over yourself. If you don't know why you are doing things, if you don't know why you feel the way that you feel, or why you're acting the way that you're acting, that's a concern, because you are in charge of one thing in your life, and that's you. Right? That's you, that's your body, that's your thoughts, that is you. And if you don't have control over that, I like to say that our mind it's like a wild animal. It is just a completely wild animal, and it is up to us to domesticate it. It's up to us to train it.
I love you.
Right? It's completely apeshit, and it's running our life, and we're over, thinking, oh my God, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it's like, you lose your agency over yourself. So what kind of person can you be? How can you show up for your job, for your family, for your relationships, for anything in life, if you don't even have, control over your own being?
So good. I mean, that's how when I teach mindfulness, when I run my cohorts on mindfulness, on meditation, that's how I create meditation, is that you've got a puppy in a box and you're training the puppy. And the puppy's job is to get out of the box. That's what puppies do. They get out of the box. In fact, if they don't get out of the box, you can't train it to stay in the box.
Right.
So you catch it, it goes out of the box, you bring it back. You just come back to the breath.
Yeah.
Your mind wanders, you just come back to the breath. It's just putting the puppy back in the box. And over time, that puppy will become a well-trained dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's still going to get out of the box from time and time again. But I love the puppy analogy. We just produced a meditation last week, and the whole concept was treating it like a game. When your mind wanders, you go like, oh, that's a thought. Gotcha. Okay, let it go. Right? You see it again. It's like, oh, that's a thought. Gotcha. And you treat it like a game, because again, the mind is gonna think. Like, there's so many times I'm deep in meditation and 10 minutes will go by and I'm like, oh man, I was really wrapped up in that story. I was really going out, like I was figuring out, 10 different things, and then okay, and I lost time to it, but then I just bring it back. Oh, okay.
You just bring it back. I did a 10-day Vipassana, and if there were I would say 10 minutes an hour, but that's so generous. If there were 5 minutes an hour, maybe 10 minutes an hour of focusing on the breath, that was a lot. 50 minutes of it would be, I wrote stand-up bits. I don't even do stand-up. I wrote a seminar in my head. I wrote stand-up. My drive home from Vipassana was me just downloading all the things that I thought of, and it's just such a misconception about meditation, is that it's, no, it's, you're just training the brain.
Yeah.
Joe, this is, you and I couldn't be more synced up. Is there something you want to leave people with about you, about anything you want to promote, or anything that you want to just leave people with knowing about themselves? And how would you want to just complete those?
Yeah, I would say, if there's anybody out there that, thinks like, I can't meditate because I can't quiet my thoughts, or I'm just not somebody who can meditate, I am here to tell you that you absolutely can. Everybody can. And, I think that it is really the key and the token to living a truly, truly deeply fulfilling life, when we just slow down enough to come back to ourselves and just ask ourselves the really important questions. So many of us are living our lives and we're disconnected from our purpose. We're disconnected from our why. We wake up one day and we look back and we're like, oh my gosh, 20 or 30 or 40 years have gone by. And I'm like, who am I and why am I doing this? And why am I here? And what is going on outside of me or within me? And I think there is no right or wrong when the goal is just to experience, when the goal is just to be present. It's a practice for a reason. It's something that continues. Every single person can do it. Every single person should do it. I always joke, like, we have the best market, like being in the mindfulness, the business of mindfulness, because there's 7 billion people in the world and they all have brains, and everybody could benefit from meditation and learning how to use their brain. So I think that, we as a collective can meditate. We can be more mindful. We can be more present, and it doesn't demand anything extra of you. It's not something else that you can add onto your schedule. It's not, now I have to go meditate. Try it when you're driving home. Try it when you're sitting, having your morning coffee. Try it when you're showering. You can't have your phone in the shower. So try it when you're showering. Just, dim the lights. I love to do, no lights in the bathroom when I'm showering, because it really just connects you to your sensory experience. Try it there. Don't try it when your mind is like, if you're not a morning person, don't try to get up at 5 a.m. and meditate. If you're not a night person, you're going to fall asleep. Just integrate it into your day-to-day life. Just do things with a little bit more presence. Ask yourself why. Get to know yourself, and just slow down enough to get back in touch with yourself, because you can only benefit from it. So that's kind of what I would leave folks with, is that it's something that everyone can try, and everyone absolutely should.
Great. Joe, I so appreciate the work you do, much less the time you just gave us. So thank you for being that voice in the world.
Of course.
I appreciate your work. Thank you so much. If people want to get a hold of you, how can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Spotify. We have a library of over 200 guided meditations. They are all free. Just search a Zen Mind Guided Meditations, Spotify, Apple, any listening platform, YouTube. So you can check it out there. You can check out zenmindglobal.com. Get to know me a little bit more of the business and some of our other offerings. But those are really the big places that you can come. Instagram at a.zen.mind. I usually just post about my day-to-day life and little hints of mindfulness here and there, and just how I'm living and what I'm doing. And I always believe in adding value to the lives of anybody who interacts with me or with my content. So hopefully there's some nuggets of wisdom or curiosity that you can pick up there as well.
Fabulous. Joe, thanks so much.
Love it. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it so much.